Good morning, Shiners. I'll wait a moment, see if anybody decides to join me. I'm trying to make up my mind about what I'm going to talk about today. I had a topic picked out, but there's been a slight change in plans. We'll probably talk about it anyway. Good morning, Carol. How are you? Can you hear me, Carol? If you can, give me just a moment. I'm back. Oh, here's that swim lessons. I see. Was that weather related? Or do you guys do weather delays up there? I had to shut my door. Brenda was going to pop on, and she gets an echo between here and there. with me talking down here, so she wanted me to shut my door. Or she may have just wanted me to shut my door. Aha. There's a lot of that going around here today, too. Good morning, Brenda. Hope you hadn't actually showed up over there yet. Thank you for joining us. Brenda's Carol at Carkey is joining us today from poolside. Or maybe she's out in her car, but anyway, she's at swimming lessons. Good coffee. Well, Carol, since you're the only one here, I'll ask this question of you and Brenda. Well, besides Brenda, I wouldn't count her because she's here in the house. I plan to talk about bird watching today and birds in general, but bird watching as a hobby and, for profit and for fun, but not profit really. But my guest star, Mark, is not going to be able to make it today. I just got a note from him. He's under the weather. Hope it's not serious. Seriously, Carol, I don't think I've ever seen that. He must have gotten. He must. Did you guys have rain before the before it dropped down below freezing? Because that might do it. Or maybe they just, if something. I mean, that's usually. Well, they try to get out of the wind. Your student spotted it. Oh, that's interesting. I've never seen that either. I mean, usually they can fluff their feathers up enough to keep themselves warm. I'm sure there is a temperature limit. What was the temperature that night or the night before? Do you remember? I've never seen that. I do know that birds and other animals can, if they get wet and they don't have a chance to shake out or dry out some, that sometimes that can happen. But I've never seen one do it, standing on a branch. 6. Well, I mean, it's certainly cold enough to freeze, but I would have thought the bird could have, survived that. Maybe did you notice what kind? Or do you know what kind? Just curious. I'm sure that probably happens further north you go, but I've never seen that. See, now I'm looking outside to see if I can find any frozen birds. It's not. It didn't get that cold. It was. I don't think it. Well, maybe it did. I thought it was supposed to get down in the teens here last night, but it got down into the 20s. It may not have. Good morning, Francisco. Happy Saturday morning. Oh, wow. Well, that's too bad. Now, woodpeckers are cavity nesters and cavity dwellers. So, I mean, it's possible that if you had a woodpecker up there that this late in the year and couldn't get in somewhere into its cavity or into a cavity, it's possible it could freeze. That if it was a small bird, it very well could have been a downy or a hairy woodpecker. I think you have both those up there. We'll double check that while we're sitting here. Downies and Harrys. Yes, most certainly, both of them. So if it was a small woodpecker, I would say it was one of those two in your area. Those are the most common. I may have asked before, Francisco, but what upper middle southern part of California are you up from or in presently? And I only asked because my wife was born in La Jolla, and her uncle still lives out there in Pacifica. It just sounds like such a neat name. I mean, Pacifica. I've only seen the Pacific Ocean once, I think, and I didn't get my feet wet, so that'd be great, Carol. Thank you. I've seen more small mammals and die from the cold than I have birds, but it certainly I'm sure it happens. I just never have seen it either. That's a unusual one. Ugh. Excuse me. I fell asleep last night. Well, it was midnightish, but I still fell asleep pretty quick. I thought I was be pretty rested this morning, and I guess I am. I wasn't feeling all that great yesterday. Brenda, are you still here? Good one, Carol. I think I think I only saw it from the plane. We flew out. Brenda had been on one trip out to meet and see her grandmother. I mean, she'd met her when she was two, up till she was two-ish, but then they moved. Yeah, me too. I don't know. I hadn't had a chance to really talk to him, so I'm not sure if he's what he's down with. He wasn't feeling. I mean, he's got a banged up leg, but I don't think that's it. He slipped and fell a few days ago on his back steps when he was going out to feed the chickens or the dogs or the horses or something, and he hit a patch of ice or snow and took a tumble and banged up his lower, I think it's his left leg, and had a big nasty knot and a bruise on it for days. And I know that was still, sickly green and purple yesterday, but the swelling's gone down now. And of course, he wouldn't go to the doctor if hell froze over. So but I don't think that's why he's not here. I think there must be something else going on. I had a little bit of a stomach bug last night. I don't know what's going on there either, or something. Either that or something I'm eating is reacting badly. But we won't go into that. But I hope he gets well too. I mean, I'd hate to call him and bug him and get him up, just to talk to me. But I talk to him every couple 3 days, if not more often, and I think I'm probably about to drive him crazy. We've been separated for so long and not talked to each other, um, just because no reason other than we were both too lazy to call, I guess. And but now that we're talking a lot. As far as the phone goes, probably more than we ever did. Mark's not an electronic kind of fan, so he doesn't even want to answer the phone most of the time. If it's not me, he don't answer it half the time, and if he's not sure it's me, he won't answer it. He just don't care anything about electronics in general so much, and which I told the young lady at his former employer that I said I was trying to find him. That's when I was trying to find him and get his phone number, and she said something about emailing him, and I said I'm not sure he's even got a computer, much less email. My guess was then that once he left the job, he left all that behind. I have a friend that did that. He just got rid of everything. Like, he didn't want a computer, he didn't want internet, he didn't want emails anymore, he didn't want anything. And he doesn't have most of that still, but I know his son finally talked him into getting a smartphone. And I don't know whether that'll be a worthwhile thing or not, because I'm not sure he's going to learn how to really use it. He'd like to, and he's a very smart guy. He would like to make you think he's not, but he's really intelligent. But anyway, so I'll wear Mark's ear out at least once or twice a week. His wife said that she told him one day, "You've never talked on the phone that long, and since I've known you, and you never talked to me for that long." So I had to tell him I apologize because I didn't want to cause a split in the house because he talks to me longer than he ever did her on the phone. But hey, they can go meet somewhere and talk or whatever. And did you guys get a lot of snow, Carol? Francisco, if you're still listening, are you in a place out there where you got a lot of the rain or the snow they've had recently? Have any trouble with mudslides or anything like that? My parents. Well, some of us like to know how everything works, but I can get that. Although I'm going to say that if a man's never used a computer and he reads the manual, it might leave something. There might be something missed in the interpretation there. It's almost different language to everybody. Yeah, we had a little bit last week I don't even remember what days it was now, Brenda, do you? But I don't know. I don't know if we'll get any more. I think we missed our chance. It's been really weird this year because a lot of the snow, honestly, most of the snow and ice that has been down this way has dipped below us. They've gotten more of it in Georgia and northern Alabama than we have. And then it hooks back up through the Carolinas. So we've been sitting kind of in a pocket. In fact, West Tennessee's gotten probably more than we've got, I'd say. I know Nashville got 6 or so inches one storm, and we got almost nothing. I'm just glad we've missed the ice. Ice storm. I hate ice storms. Are horrible. I mean, they just break everything down, and power goes out, and they break down the trees, or the ice breaks down the trees, and it's a bad deal all around. We had some really bad ice storms a few years ago that blocked a part of in the Smoky Mountain National Park. There's a road that's called the I'm sorry, I keep yawning road. Well, I can't even remember the name of it. It's sort of like a short Blue Ridge Parkway. Hi, John. Good morning, sir. How are you? Anyway, so many trees fell on it. It took them about a year, to get it back open. Yeah, plus, really dangerous roads. And for some reason, people think they can just drive on ice like it was, one, like it was snow, which it's not. But I've seen so many people spinning out and landing in the ditch and other places because they thought snow was something they could drive upon. I mean, ice was something they could drive on, because I've got a 4-wheel drive vehicle. I can go anywhere. Well, you can't drive on ice much any better than anybody else can. I'll tell you that. I've had them, driven them both, and on ice, it doesn't really matter. About the only thing that works on ice is chains or studded snow tires, and I haven't seen a studded snow tire since I was in my teens, probably. I don't know. Does any? I know some states don't allow studded snow tires, or at least not except in bad weather or bad times of the year. I don't know if anybody still uses them or not. One of my jobs when I was in high school and getting out, and right after high school, was putting studs in tires for customers. They would come in and buy some snow tires back when we had, real snow tires, and they'd have studs put in them, and I'd have to go back and put the studs in them. A little pneumatic gun. And the tires were pre-drilled, so to speak. They had holes in them. They may not, Carol. Hey, Simon. Hey, Teddy, you want to wake up and get online? Teddy might not get on this morning. He's got a big old place on his cheek where one of his housemates here, I think, bit him. That's what we think it is. We're trying to put some antibiotics or antibacterial ointment on it to try to, let it get too bad. Hey, move. Don't chew on that. No, 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 no. I don't know if he's down there biting on my box or if he's just rubbing his teeth on it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting a yawning spell here. And I'm stopped up too. I've been stopped up this week, some, but more than normal. But so I don't know if it's. You'd think with this cold, it wouldn't be. Not. Oh yeah, poor Teddy. Carol feels sorry for you because you got that place on your face. Can I see it? Can I see your face? Let him look. I don't think it looks as bad this morning. I hope not. His little sister, Mad, done it to him. She doesn't take a lot of guff from him either. They scuffle from time to time. They still play like kittens at times, and then one of them will get tired of it, and they'll whack the other one or bite the other one. All right, it's spreading. That's good. I'm passing on something. At least I'm passing. I can't pass on good country wisdom. I'll pass on yawns. I've been driving 4x4 for 40 years. And it works less than 20 miles per hour in snow. So people driving 50 miles per hour think 4x4 is going to work better in snow. Yeah, people just. I'll tell you what I think. Those people didn't grow up didn't drive a 4x4 for all the right reasons, and those being, where you really have time to get out or get through a situation, or like 4x4s might have been made to do, and we're on size. She's the smallest cat in the house, Carol. But anyway, they buy one and drive it back and forth to work all the time, and they're 4-wheelers, and I mean they think they can just do it. I bet 80% of the 4-wheel drive vehicles in this country never get off road short of being in the yard or something. But they think they can just go, and then I've seen them just spinning down the road because they can't stop. They don't understand. It's not about going. Usually, it's about controlling, turning, and stopping, especially. Slow and crawl. I mean, if you do that and you do the right things, yes, they'll get you in a lot of places. And that other car, that a 2-wheel drive car or truck can't. I had a little 2-wheel drive truck for a long time, a little S10 Chevrolet. And when they first came, I got the year they first came out, in fact. And that thing was terrible on wet or slick roads. I mean, it was 2-wheel drive, and the back end of that thing would break, just start fishtailing on anything slick or even really wet sometimes. I had to be very careful with it. It was not a snow vehicle for sure. But fortunately, I never had any wrecks or anything. Yeah, he went back to sleep, Carol. I think he's not going to show his scar today. He might in a few minutes, but I know better than to wake him up. He'll be grouchy. Well, yeah, no weight. I always thought Volkswagens went pretty good in the snow. Growing up, that seemed like the thing to have if you were going to get out in the snow. And throw a set of snow tires on a Volkswagen, a rear engine Volkswagen, and you could go pretty well. And there was a time, I think, when a lot of cars went better in the snow because they were heavy. I mean, my dad had an old Dodge Polaris one time that he drove as a company car, and that thing was like a tank. I can't imagine how heavy that car was. Good morning, Dave. Good to see you, sir. How's Georgia this morning? I hope you are well. You and the missus. Bear with me a minute. I got a big old smudge on my glasses and making me not be able to see the screen almost here. Anybody else have that problem? Man, where'd my eyes go? Had a doctor told me one time I would never need glasses. My eyes were so good, he said, you may never need glasses. Boy, was he wrong. I didn't for a long, long time. And then I started needing them to read. And that evolved into needing them to see the computer well. I've often wondered if it was because of the computer that these things happen. That's when I started having computers, is about when I started needing glasses. Both of those things happened when I was near 40, so. Actually, I was a little over 40 by the time I needed the glasses, but much better. Need some coffee. You do or somebody else does? By all means, grab a cup if it's you. I'd pour you some through the screen if we had, exchange of vision or something. Teleportation. Teleport vision. Might be onto something there. Well, thanks everybody for coming in this morning. If you don't mind, hit the like or dislike button and subscribe if you haven't. I'd appreciate that. I can't make you subscribe, but if there's anything here you at least enjoy seeing me make a fool out of myself, then by all means, hit that button. I had planned to have my most recent guest star, and he's probably the star of the show more than I am. That's Mark Uncas. And he's a little under the weather today, so he couldn't make it. I was going to talk, and I probably will talk about birding some, or at least some different birds that are common for people to see in some areas. And he couldn't make it. And I wanted him to be here too because he's one of the best birders I know, a bird watcher, commonly referred to as birders. Hey, Tina. Oh, cooking for the dog. Bless the dog's heart. Steak for your princess. I hope, is she eating better or is it just when she gets steak? She might have found a trick. Bear with me, folks. I need to clear my nose. My kids and my wife make fun of me for how I wipe my nose, so I apologize to you guys. I think that I will. I think Brenda dropped out on me. Maybe not. Yeah, John, I think it probably is. Even Florida, I think, got at least cool. And northern Florida, maybe really cold not just Florida cold, but really cold. Yeah, could be, Tina. They're not stupid. Hey, Dave. Hey, Dave. Space Mountain Dave Contrails in the house. Welcome. Where was there? I missed the Impala conversation. I drove an Impala for a while, or my dad did again. That was the car I learned to drive in. Wow, Florida, it's 40 degrees. Okay, I totally missed the Impala conversation. Somebody catch me up here. I'm trying to find it. We had a white one, and the one I drove was an SS, Carol. It was white. It was plain in that regard, but I thought that was a pretty cool car, and it was a company car no less. But it was signed to my dad because he traveled all the time, so was it we could use it as a personal. It was his personal car, and oh, I bet that was fun, Tina, because Impalas unfortunately got bigger and bigger and bigger until they stopped making them, I think, for a while. And then they came back as a much smaller car, kind of closer to what they were originally. By today's standards, just about all the cars we drove back then were huge. My father-in-law had a big, some kind of giant Chrysler when Brenda and I were dating, and they came to visit me one time while I was in Florida, and Brenda and I they allowed they allowed Brenda and I to go to Disney World, and they didn't want to go, and he I only had a motorcycle down there, so she he loaned me their car, and I drove that thing. Man, you talk about a boat! That was a huge car. I can't remember what model that was, but it was giant 4-door thing, about 100 miles long. Yeah, Malibu SS were those. Some of those Malibus were SSs were pretty sporty. And now Brenda's grandmother had a car that I wish we had. I wish we could have bought or something, but it was a. I want to say it was a baby blue or a sky blue Camaro. I believe it was an SS, and it had a white convertible top and a dual white racing stripe down it, like some of them had. Uh, only the SS models did, but hers was a pretty rare convert. I mean, it was convertible, so it was the only one I ever really saw. I don't know what for sure what the carburetor was on ours, but it had a 327 in it too, John. That used to be a pretty good engine back when they made that. Not sure why they stopped making that engine. They backed everything down to their 305, which I thought was junky at the time, or 350. Yeah, 350, which was, I'm not sure it was as good as a 327. Most hot rodders I knew preferred the 327 back then. Carol, I had a Mustang somewhere in that time frame. Actually, no, it was actually before that. Or was it? I had a silver one. We had a silver one. It had the little engine in it, but it was turbocharged, and it was a couple of. It was a kind of a. I don't know what body style Mustang people have names for all those things, and I don't know if that's one of the. I can't remember if it was one of the forgotten ones or because there's a couple of models in there that Mustang people don't even consider real Mustangs, and that's probably what I had. But there was a Mustang 2, which most people I don't think liked, and then they came out with another one, and then they eventually came back around to the ones that look more like the originals, or at least like the later originals. Oh, John, a 396 in a Blazer. That was a heavy. I would have thought that would have been heavy for a Blazer, or heavy in the front end, because that was a big block motor, wasn't it? When the 396, the small, big block. Well, I don't know. Both of those cars might be somewhat valuable today, John. That 66 Mustang might have been probably worth more today than it was back then. A friend of mine had one with a 3-speed in it. I don't remember his. It was a late 60s model before the original body style, but I can't remember if it was a fastback. It wasn't a fastback. So I guess it was just the basic the original body style, but it had a 3-speed in it instead of a automatic or a 4-speed. Yes, yes, Dave, I would agree with that. In fact, the Caprice may have been bigger than Impalas, but in fact, that may be what I'm thinking of. That got really big. Wow. Yeah, you could probably get a lot more for it today. I used to know a guy that was into Mustangs and Mustang Club and restoring Mustangs, and he told me what they'd gotten worth some of them, and I couldn't believe it. Do you ever remember seeing one of the Playboy models, John? I think that's what they called them. They were pink or pink, maybe pink and black. There used to be one setting. Oh, where did we see that? We were on a road trip one time working on an airplane, and we passed one, and it was sitting in a yard. It was getting pretty rusty. It might have been in West Virginia, and he wanted to stop and look at it, but we were all ready to come home. But I think it was pretty far gone. But I guess those were pretty rare, so Mustang people were really like that model, or it was collectible. Let's put it that way. Okay, okay, Carol, be safe on the roads. See you when you get home, I hope. I think they only made that Playboy car. It's just a very limited edition thing for 1 year. I think. I don't know if I can look that up. What year that was? Yeah, there's one. Let's see. That looks like a 67 or 68 fastback, or Six. What? They were special orders, and they were actually came out in the 60 in the first year or so, and they were convertibles. I remember that. I thought they were convertibles. They were given to the 1964 Playmate of the Year. So maybe they only made one per year then, because I'm thinking that since it said special order, Hugh Hefner must have been ordering those just for that. Oh, I didn't know that. That's even less than that's even more. That would be even more limited than I realized. Hey, Don. Good morning from the Lone Star State. How chilly is it out your way? I've been watching lots of rodeos lately from your part of the world. It's the rodeo season in Texas is kicking off. Fort Worth Stockyard. I think San Antonio may be next, and San Angelo, and there's at least one more out west. They're all big, huge things, lasting multiple days and lots of people. The other PBR's going. I think they're on. I think they're on again tonight. I think, but I don't. Sometimes I only get the. I don't get all the. I don't get all their rounds anymore. I think you have to subscribe to get some of them. Huh. I was making up my slides earlier, and I noticed some slides were missing. I just realized they didn't download. I just saw that. I didn't see that before. It's chilly up here too, Don. It's we're supposed to get a little sunshine today though, so it'll warm back up some. But it was in the 20s. I thought it was supposed to get down in the teens, but I don't think it did. I think it, but maybe it wasn't supposed to, but it definitely got into the 20s, which is not super cold by northern standards. I know don't know if Tina said how cold it was up her way this morning, but I know Carol said it was pretty chilly in Michigan. Dave said it was 40 in Florida. Space Mountain Dave. Well, if it's 40, Dave, it is cold in Florida. I'll have to admit that's. Oh well, you're about where we were. We're probably warmer than that by now, but the sun is shining. We're not getting any more snow, or we're not getting any more or no rain. The rain was what was worrying me the most. I have unlimited data on my phone system now. I'm supposed to, and for some reason I still get data warnings. I'm not sure why. I'm probably getting ready to hit a choke point. Oh, it was 27, and I checked a little while ago, and it's up to 30 already. So sun's already having an effect. If it warms up a little bit more, I need to get out and fill up bird feeders today, don't we, Brenda? My little darlings are going to freeze to death. Well, I promised bird stuff today, so let me just go ahead and throw that up. And there's Carol. Well, let me let Carol get home. I'll give her a chance to partake. And I had asked. I'm hoping that Shelly Starwalker might walk in. I always want to say Skywalker. I don't know. You guys, most of you guys probably know how I feel about her. Shelley's photography. She's got some great bird photographs, and for somebody who's only been doing it for a few years, she's really good. I can't help but brag on her work. It's she's got some great images, far better than most of mine, and I worked on it for a long time. In fact, I will go ahead and set it up. I got a song in my head. I got an earworm in my head I can't get out. It's called Broken Cowboy by the Dead South, I believe. I got it pulled up when I get ready to show it. Yeah, did you guys get snow, Dave, and Adventures by Dave in Georgia? I was just telling folks that a lot of the bad weather, you guys may have gotten more of it than we got because it kind of looped around us. We were in a bit of a trough or a hole that sort of got missed by the really bad stuff. Just a dusting. Okay, that's good because I wasn't sure if you guys got ice or snow or what, but I just knew the weather map showed that it kind of dipped below us into northern Georgia and northern Alabama and then up across the Carolinas and then on up the coast. But yeah, it was a couple of days ago when that happened. It's whatever we get. I don't know if we got any snow out. They were calling for snow again yesterday, I believe, or last night. We didn't see any. Brenda and I both commented on the fact that we had seen nothing out the windows all day. So that didn't really materialize. And now the sun's out, so I think we're safe. We don't have to go anywhere right now, so I don't much care if it did snow. Brenda does not like snow. She does not like driving in snow. That's interesting, Dave. That probably makes sense. For one thing, anywhere near Atlanta is probably affected by the heat sink effect of, on the concrete and asphalt in Atlanta. I know that can make a huge difference. When I'd ride motorcycle down from north of town from work, a lot of times I could tell the difference in the temperature, even getting close to Knoxville. You could feel the difference, and there was 2 or 3 degrees difference at least between work and coming into driving into the city. Let's see here. What have I got? Let me check make sure I hadn't missed anybody here. Tell you what, guys, I'm gonna have to. Give me just a moment. I'm gonna step over here and grab my nasal spray. I'll see if that helps. I shouldn't be sitting here sniffing in front with everybody on the. It's rude, if not gross. So hopefully when I get that up in my nostrils a little bit, sinuses, things will clean out. Dave, how long is it supposed to? Dave Cantrell, how long is it supposed to stay cold down there? Are they expecting it to last a few days or warm back up? I just wonder if it's going to be cold enough to hurt oranges. And I already heard that the orange crop's low, or is low, or was low, at least lower than expected, because they've been talking about orange juice prices going up. Excuse me. I was just thinking about Dean. Has anybody heard anything new from Dean about his father? I think yesterday he said there was a slight improvement, but not much. Don't tell Jeff I said hi too. Don't want to leave him out. Neck's hurting a little bit this morning. Oh, I'm sorry I'm quiet here. I was just kind of waiting for a few minutes. I think I'm going to go ahead and show my slides and talk a little bit about bird watching and birds in general. And I may come back and run some of it again. There's so much more I can add to it that, showing it now doesn't mean I can't use it again soon. So I'm going to share it. I don't know which way to do this. Maybe that's not the way. Okay, this will work. Here we go. Let's talk about birds. Hope you can see that okay. I don't know how many have ever, maybe some of you are birders. Like I said, I know Shelly Starwalker takes a lot of she does a lot of birding and takes pictures. And I don't know if the birding part was something she got into prior to taking, picking up the camera, or if she's always done both. I know she reads up and puts in good information when she posts pictures. I tell you what we'll do, since Mark's not here, I might kind of breeze over the first 2 or 3, and then we'll talk about common birds we see at Disney World, because we do. And I will start off with this guy, the barn owl. One of my favorite birds. I love the call of the barn owl, barred owl. Thought I had a message there. Thought it might be Mark. Yeah, ducks. Well, I didn't get to put my ducks in, John, but I will be doing that. Probably next week. I'll probably try to do some more on this topic. But these guys range primarily over the eastern United States. They get up into Canada, and then they kind of have a narrow area that they cross Canada and go all the way over to parts of Oregon and Washington. Sort of a unique range in that regard. But what the unique call about barred owls is funny, because it's been said that what the barred owl is saying out there is, "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?" And I can't do it as well as I can't do the call as well as Mark can, but they call kind of goes, "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh," and that's just a real basic call. And after that, they can mimic, and they'll get to talking to each other in the trees at night sometimes, and they'll again, it's a challenge contest, I think, for some kind of male supremacy, no doubt, and they'll start what we used to call aping. They'll just make this kind of noise, and almost sound like a monkey or a chimp getting fired up, and then they can just make. We think about hoot owls and things just hooting and making basic calls, but they can get very talkative. Great horned owls are that way. They just do a basic hoo 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 kind of sound, which I'm not trying to imitate there. Sometimes I can do that, sometimes I can't. But then they'll get off on that. They'll get to count when there's too many males around. Maybe one friendly female. They can start talking, and you can challenge them. We've done it in the woods. You can start calling back to them, and they'll come in and land in trees around you, and start up that stuff and responding. It's kind of a call and response sort of thing. So anyway, it's kind of cool. They're neat birds. And I thought I would throw these guys in there. These are common woodpeckers that I see around our bird feeders. Woodpeckers are mainly insectivores, not always, but by and large, that's why they peck on trees, is to attract or find bugs, get the little critters that are down under the bark and whatnot. These are two fairly common ones, and they don't look as similar in this picture, but in real life, when they land on your bird feeder, if they're in and out, they're kind of hard to tell apart. And you can say they both have a red top knot, or right here on the crest of their head. and an eye streak above, white streak above the eye. That's very similar, but they're a little bit different in size, but you really can't see that so much when they're on, because they're never out there, both at the same time. But the way you tell them apart is the length of their beak. This is the downy, and the downy has a shorter beak, and a hairy over here has a longer beak. So you kind of look at that and compare that to their head. And, you look, see if the beak would reach the eye, if it was turned around the other way, or if it goes to the eye, past the eye. And once you start picking up on the size difference, you can pick it up pretty quick which one's which. That's how I learned to tell them apart. And then we got our big woodpeckers that come around. Now we don't see pileated, the top one. That's the biggest woodpecker in the United States. And this is 3 nestlings or chicklets, if you will. And you can see that's a sure sign that they're ready to eat. Those look like those are getting to be pretty good sized birds, so they're probably not long for the nest in that photograph. Oops, how'd that happen? And down here in the lower left-hand corner, we have, unfortunately, I didn't get a good picture of the front, but this is a red-bellied woodpecker. And if it would turn around, you could really see why it's called that. It has a red spot on its stomach. But there are several of these birds that look very similar. And almost a couple of them, at least, have very similar red heads. So you have to see that belly to really tell them apart. But we have those all the time in our backyard. Again, eating off the suet feeders and pecking on some of the other feeder some, but they're definitely a suet eater. Hey, Shelly, good morning. Welcome in. We were just talking about you. Well, I mentioned you a minute ago anyway. And I just started showing some of my slides, or some of the ones I put together to talk about a little bit. And I'm talking about woodpeckers at the moment. And then the woodpecker on the far right is the basic red-headed woodpecker, and it's kind of an obvious name, although there's a lot of woodpeckers with red on the head. Some people would call them pileated up there in the top corner a red. I've heard them call red-headed woodpeckers too around here, but that's just a local thing. By comparison, that bird is probably over twice the size of either one of the other two at the bottom. Some people used to call pileated wood hens or woods chickens because they were big enough that they actually were hunted for game or hunted to eat. And there's an extinct species, or presumed extinct at this point still, that was very similar to the pileated, called the ivory bill. And I haven't put that in that section in here yet, but they were basically between change of habitat and hunting. They were, have gone extinct, or are at least so rare we think they are. In this country, they believe there's still some down in Cuba, which seems like an odd place for a woodpecker, but at one time there were areas down there where they could be very isolated and had a stand of woods big enough to support them. And then a couple of years ago, the birding community got really excited because they thought they had found some alive down in Alabama or Arkansas. It was in Arkansas, which was part of their original range. And they were spending a lot of time out there trying to verify it. And a guy had some video footage that looked like it could have been a wooded or a ivory bill. But to my knowledge, they never were able to prove that definitively, or they've not talked about it. And it's possible that they have, but aren't really talking about it out loud yet because they're trying to establish territories, or, they don't want any other disturbance, but because that would be a land rush of people down there to see it if they do exist. Birders get excited about things like that. And they tend to go running and flocking, pardon the expression, to any rare, unusual sighting spot. Do you have redheadeds up your way, Shelley? I didn't, I meant to look the range up because that's not something we really see much down here. Occasionally, or maybe in a different part of the state, but we see pileateds in the bigger woods, and we have a lot of the little ones, the little guys, downies and harries, flickers, and the red bellied, and the occasional sapsucker comes through, which are all different variations on the woodpecker variety of birds. In fact, I had pretty sure we had one pecking on our house the other day, which is not a good thing. Okay, let's see what else I got here. Now, I put together a few things you might see in Florida if you go to Walt Disney World or anywhere else down there. But when we would go to Florida or when we would go to Disney World, the girls would always get excited when they first started seeing white egrets, or even cattle egrets for that matter. But now that's not quite as big a deal because we've got both of those species up here now. Cattle egrets have migrated north, moved north, which they're actually an exotic to this continent. And every once in a while, we used to count white egrets and great egrets on the lakes around here. So when we were out looking for that sort of thing, so they're more common now too than they used to be. But I'm sure if you've been to Disney World and paid much attention, you've seen these two. Rosette spoonbill, I used to see down there walking the shallows, and they've usually got that large bill in the underwater, and they're scouring the bottom for aquatic animals, bugs, things they can eat. And of course, the one on the right is a white ibis, and you see those things all over Disney World, and they're pretty bad to beg for food. Unfortunately, most everything that's in that around the parks down there, I'm sure it's this way in all of them. They're used to finding handouts or getting handouts. Excuse me. And while they probably shouldn't be eating what they're getting, they do. I mean, French fries are a favorite with some. The grackles can be horrible. I've got grackles here in a moment too. Anyway, that's two of the species you see down there a lot. And the ibis, they're always around water. Most of these two birds. The rosettes the spoonbills tend to stay around the water. That's the only place they're at. But the ibises will walk out, amongst the people and look for a handout. Okay, Shelley. So you do have them in the spring and summer. They're down this way. This is probably come close to being a time when I might see one. That's a red-headed woodpecker. If you were down in the bayou, you probably got to see a lot of interesting things. Again, those are good areas to bird hunt in, especially wading birds and some shorebirds and that sort of thing. I've got some of those here too in a second. Here's three more pretty common ones I see down in Disney World all the time. This is a white egret. I'm not sure. I don't think these are the great egrets, but they might be. It's hard. I don't have a size reference so much, and I didn't actually pinpoint this by looking up the key. But and over here we have a green heron. Now, growing up, and later when I first started paying attention to birds more, the green egret we always called that a little green, but they've named a few of these birds or corrected them. So now that's just the green heron, and it looks more green than it has a greenish tint when you see it live. It doesn't really look green there, but when you see them out in the wild, they do tend to look greener, like their legs. And so now they're just called greens. Unless you're an old guy and like me and you write it down in your notebook and you put little green heron. I still do that once in a while. And finally, down at the bottom, I hope if you're riding in a boat at Disney World or you're just walking along a pathway and you see the shallow water, and you especially when there's lily pads and things, you'll see these guys hopping from lily pad to lily pad, and they're related to coots at some level, but they're called a purple gallinule, and you don't see those birds anywhere outside of those swampy areas down there along the coast and in the interior Florida, and then around through the Gulf Coast area. But they're very southern water dependent type bird, but they're neat because they'll walk across they get out there and walk on the lily pads and hunt for their prey and bugs and whatnot. And they're very colorful. I see them all the time when we're down there along the edges. Well, that's cool, John. Have you ever been to the? Let's see. Do you have the? I can't remember if it's New Jersey, but the area up there where the horseshoe crabs come in the winter. I think it's winter, and or maybe it's fall. But anyway, they come in and all the birds show up to eat their eggs. Excuse me. Whoops. So anyway, I was sitting here thinking about birds and about lost myself into down by Cape May. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go to another page. You should see some of these too, and sometimes these two birds get mixed up. The one on the left is an anhinga or a snake bird. If you've ever seen Disney's early movies about the water birds, was one of the first, actually one of the first nature programs they had. I've got the DVD for that over here somewhere. Those original animal, what did they call those? There was one about penguins and Seal Island and water birds and then lions and tigers, oh my, and bears and that sort of thing. But that was part of Disney's early nature documentary series type movies and shows. But they also call them snake birds, and the only reason I could ever figure that was because they coil that neck and strike. But great blue herons do that too, but probably not to the extent these guys do. These guys also swim underwater. That's why what you're seeing there is an anhinga and cormorant, for that matter. I ain't got to the cormorant yet, but they'll do that after they dive and feed. They'll stand in the sun like that until their feathers dry back out. Which, like I was talking about earlier, Carol was here and she was talking about seeing a frozen bird on a branch. Yeah, that's kind of what it is, Tina. That's where I was trying to go, and then I got on another track too. But when they swim underwater, obviously they've got a bigger body, but their neck is real busy underwater. So that's where I always thought they got that name. I think they're a much neater bird. Cormorants they're fish eaters too, and they're getting very common all over the country. So much so that they're starting to move them and remove them in some places because of the number of fish they can consume and the amount of pressure that the Fish and Wildlife Service receives from fishermen, especially commercial fishermen like on the Great Lakes and other places because of the numbers of fish they can eat. And they can populate an area really fast. They're on most of our lakes up here now. They are absolutely destructive on islands. A lot of these birds, like cormorants, egrets, herons, nest on islands a lot of times, or along the edge of the wood, and they nest up in the trees. And their excrement is very acidic. So they stand up there and whitewash the trees, if you will, and the ground. And over time, the trees die. Well, cormorants seem to have extra powerful poop, for pardon the expression. And they are hard on. We've got islands that are literally washing away down here in the river because in a couple of years, all the trees have died because of this. Is John? Oh, goodbye, John. Say hi to Dad. Have a good day, buddy. I thought you guys did, and in fact, some of the areas up your way or over towards New England have had a lot of them and had some, if you will, problems. Hey, Kelly, good morning. Mickey Bunch is in the house. I'm sorry, I've suddenly got a complete dry mouth. Coffee won't really help, but it wets it for a minute. So cormorants have almost become they're a native bird to this country, but they're almost becoming a nuisance in some places. And again, a nuisance bird is one that bothers, somebody, but may not bother other people. So it depends on things like what you do for a living, or whether they peck into your house or cause other problems. And cormorants have a kind of a reputation for that. And hingas, on the other hand, are still much more rare, and you don't see them up here. I'm not sure what the furthest north I've ever seen one is, but I see them in Florida. And like I say, and here's how you tell them apart. If you can't, when you're out in the wild, they look kind of similar when they're standing there. You can't always see the neck. The neck's longer on an anhinga, but look at their bill or their beak. It's on an anhinga. It's very pointed, and they stab at their fish literally. And on the cormorant, the end of their beak turns down like a hook. So that's how you can tell them apart. Usually pretty quick if you see them standing in the sun. Anhingas, I've never seen anhingas in a big bunch. I may have seen one or two or three together or close together. A lot of times they're singles. Cormorants are rarely by themselves. They're almost always in a group. And I've seen them all over Disney World in the around the water. Let's see what we got next. And two other birds you'll see it. I used to see at Disney World. Florida, the first bald eagle. I grew up when bald eagles were suffering from the effects of DDT. And so they were rare down this way. And the first one I ever saw was in Florida along a highway, and they were nested in a group of pine trees up in the very top of the pines, and which I thought was pretty interesting. But I used to see them in Florida pretty regularly. But on the left, or the left side here, are black buzzards or black vultures, correct, but more correctly. And they're actually very common at Disney World too, in that whole area. But you see them again around the edges of water. They're looking more for handouts or carrion, which is what they eat. And we stayed at the Contemporary one time, and the girls were still fairly young. Kelly was 4 or 5. And we had to be careful because there were a couple of young black vultures that would come up to the hotel, right up to the balcony or the patio. We were on ground level that time, and they would actually grab our towels and try to run off with them back down to the water. They're funny, and because of that, I think they think that the young vultures get bored, literally, and they all animals have what they call loafing time when they're resting. Most animals, smaller mammals and things, they might go into a burrow or hide somewhere when they're loafing, and resting up. But birds often just, some birds, at least like these bigger birds, stand around. And we have a terrible time with them up here around some of our boat landings and areas where people launch boats up here into the lakes. They will gather around those areas because, unfortunately, some fishermen are not very tidy and not very responsible, and they'll clean fish and just leave all the fish guts and entrails and parts laying around the boat dock or the launching ramp. And so buzzards or vultures start to show up to eat that. And then when that's all gone, or they get tired of that, or they're bored and they're just hanging around loafing, they'll start ripping cars apart. They'll literally start pulling off the windshield wipers, any rubber that's on the car. So the seals around your windshield, rubber seals around your windows. If you happen to have a boat sitting there, I've seen them rip the seats out of boats. They'll literally rip the cover off and then start pulling out the foam that's inside the boat seats. And they can do a lot of damage. And they've got claws or talons. And while they're not talons like the bald eagle has there, and you might be able to see, they still have, talons that they rip food apart with. And they scratch up cars terribly, and we used to get people that would come and complain to us because since it's our boat ramp, or in some cases it was, they would want us to do something about it. Well, there's very little you can do about it short of getting rid of the vultures. And ultimately, if you can't get them to leave the area, they would have to take some out and either move them, which they tend to come back, or euthanize them, which is not what anybody really wants to do. That is a practice to decrease numbers sometimes of certain species. It's not really anything most wildlife officials want to do, but it becomes I'm going to say an ugly necessity. Sometimes we don't have a lot of choice. What wildlife people have learned over the last 50 years or so is that you can move a lot of these animals to a new area, and a lot of them won't stay. They'll come right back. 2-inch eagle buffet, which is why I've got them on the. Another reason I have them on the same page is not only did I see them in Florida a lot. In some ways, they're both kind of buzzards. Eagle, to be such a majestic bird. And I'm not knocking them. I love eagles. I love to see them in the wild. We used to kind of jokingly call them fish buzzards because they eat a lot of carrion too. And they catch fish, and they sometimes will catch ducks, but they're not quite the predator that a lot of hawks and owls and golden eagles are. And they just soon eat a dead fish as, go out and catch a live one. So, whereas most of those other species always catch their food. Yes, they are, Shelley. Which is pretty common in most species, actually, of birds. The females are often larger. And that's partly, they produce the young and they produce the eggs, which takes a certain amount of, they're opportunists. That's true. A better word. To produce eggs and the calcium it takes to produce egg shells and all that actually requires a lot more from the animal than you might think. And the females do tend to be larger. And their nest can be huge. If you've ever seen their nest, I think Shelley may have some pictures. I think the biggest one they ever found was over 600 pounds and bigger than a Volkswagen Beetle. Because eagles will come back, they'll return to the same nest year after year if the nest is not disturbed or wrecked. And they'll just keep adding to it and adding to it and adding to it over the years, and they can get huge. In fact, they get so big sometimes they break out the top of the tree because they like to be in the very top if they can. and they may break out the tree. Yeah, they can be the size. I mean, they're huge. They really are. And wait a minute, what's frightening? Come on, Kelly. We're not here to frighten you. We're here to talk about birds education, or just general conversation. Apologize for any birds the bird Hitchcock movie reference. But anyway, they're great. They're beautiful animals, and vultures do their job too. They take care of roadkill. They take care of a lot of dead animals and things that we don't know. If they weren't out there, we'd have a real problem. And two very common two very common birds to see at Disney World are grackles. You've got your basic common grackle, which is very iridescent head, and our French fry stealers, and you've got great tail grackles, which are just about as bad, or just as bad. These are the guys, other than seagulls, which I didn't put in here because there's so many seagull species that look so much alike. I'm not always sure which ones are stealing your French fries at Disney or hanging around. But these two birds are definitely some of the French fry thieves that hang out at Disney World or any other place where they can, scarf a meal, and they will definitely come up and get your French fries or whatever else they can grab off your plate. They're terrible moochers, and while they're beautiful, I mean, I think they're beautiful. They're iridescent. Both of them are very iridescent, and especially the great tail. And I used to mistake those for boat tail, and there may be some boat tails in that part of Florida, but boat tail grackles tend to be further west, more along the coast of Texas and Louisiana than Florida. But great tails are huge, and you can tell the difference obviously by the tail is longer and bigger, and they walk. Usually, it's kind of a V shape when you see them moving around. And you can kind of see it in this photograph. So that makes a that's one way you can tell them apart. But you can also see by the color that there's more iridescence on the back of the great tails than there is on the common. But the biggest difference is overall size. Body size is not so much different. It is somewhat. Yes, they are. If you get them up close in a camera lens, they're very intense. And they're always, as Tina says, they're always watching. But that's one of the most common birds you see down there that's mooching off people in the areas where we eat. And the girls used to love it. I used to try not to let them not try to explain why they shouldn't feed the birds while they're eating, because that tends to, just attract more birds. But kids will be kids, so they thought it was great fun to feed the birds. And it's probably not something we're going to stop anytime soon because there's always plenty of people in an amusement park of any kind that'll throw a French fry out to the birds. Good morning, Ashley. Good to see you, ma'am. We're looking at birds here. I didn't get completely finished with this, so I'm going to add to it and do it again or do some more. But and we're gonna talk about something else along with it. But let's see what else I have. And in Florida or anywhere along the coast is a great place to see birds or shorebirds. Waders like these, and the ones that just mostly stay in the sand, like this bird on the upper right is a piping plover, and that's Plover. And then the guys at the bottom down here are least sandpipers. And there's some do I have any mods in here? I don't know if I can get to that. There's some of my very rare spam. Okay, I guess I've already done something I can't undo. Okay. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. Well, these are great birds. I love to, Brendan. We used to talk about this. We love how the like plovers and things like that will chase the water. You can see these are the kind of birds that you see along the beach. When the water tides come in, they run up to the shore, and as the water goes out, they run back down, and that's when they're hunting and they're getting little bugs and little microscopic or nearly microscopic little critters that the oceans washes up into the sand. And then there's some of them that actually burrow. The longer the bill, you can usually tell what they eat or feeding habits because the longer the beak, they'll drill down into the sand, if you will, and find the little critters that burrow down into the sand as the water retreats out. And that's what I was asking John about because there's an area in the upper northeast, and I was thinking part of it's in New Jersey where horseshoe crabs come to breed or at least lay their eggs, and they fortunately lay millions and millions and millions, if not trillions, of eggs or billions. But there's always a group of birds, shorebirds, that flock to those areas. It's a coexistence that has been there for centuries, where these birds fly and eat a lot of the eggs as they come out of the sand or washed in and out by the ocean tides. But yet there's enough of them survive that, they keep horseshoe crabs continue to remain. And a horseshoe crab is a very ancient uh, bird species. I mean, they have been around for a very long time. And but this symbiotic relationship exists. Let's see what Shelley's saying. One of my favorite subjects. I need to go and take my son. Oh, okay. You have a great weekend too. Thank you for coming on and talking about it. I'd love to talk to you more sometime about how you got into bird photography and that sort of thing. So hopefully we can do this again. Be safe out there. So anyway, these are guys you see at the beach. I can't turn that off. These are some you would see at the beach. And that's it. That's where I stopped today. So as you can see, there's a lot of opportunities, and I used to love to go down and take my cameras and my longest lenses and be careful if it's snowing. Um, I'm on StreamYard if that's what you mean, Ashley. I just use it. Um, I started out with the free version. I've got one of the pay versions. I think there's maybe a couple of levels of that if that's what you're asking. Now, as far as the slideshow I put together, and I need to shut that down, don't I? Let me stop sharing the screen. The slideshow presentation I put together was actually a Google slide, although I've always used Microsoft PowerPoint. I've got to download it and re-update it. I don't have current versions on my computers, so I'm not been able to do that lately. But I'm getting there, back to it. I like the Google versions of some of these things. I use Document some. I use PowerPoint. They're slides. They just call it slides. But I also get very frustrated with it because there's certain things I can't do that I've always been able to do with PowerPoint. So I'm going to go back to PowerPoint and go back to using it. Oh, well, I am using Windows 11, Ashley. I'm surprised you knew that. How do you know that? I just downloaded that recently. Hmm. anyway, I'm watching something. There's something curious here. So, if you're into bird watching, or if you want to get into bird watching, there's also some other recommendations I would make. And the first thing you need, the first two things you really need. Oh, well, that's good, Ashley. That's fun. Are well, actually, I will say the first thing you need is this. Not necessarily this one, but a good bird guide. Now, this one is called the Sibley Guide. It's put out by the, or published at least by the Audubon Society. And this is a very detailed, in-depth book. And a lot of birders, old-time birders, will tell you they prefer drawings of birds as opposed to photographs because they will, and this I found to be mostly true. You get more detail with a good drawing. The colors are more correct. A lot of people don't realize when they take a color photograph, and digital has changed this a lot. But it used to be when you took a photograph, you didn't, depending on the light or the angle or the time of day, those kinds of things. The colors didn't always represent true. Or certain films. Kodachrome had a great reputation for color film, and it made some really pop, but not always. Yep, we did, Tina. I whacked them though. But you're back with your bat, so that's good. Good question, Tina. But so this book is mostly drawings. Now, there's other books that are good books. For example, this one. The Audubon also put out these books. Maybe these are their own versions, but they're mostly photographs. And a lot of people do prefer the photographs because they, to them they look more real. And I used to kind of think that too until I really got to looking for markers and indicators and identification marks and things. And a lot of times the drawings will have those better. But either one is good. Get one of some kind. Either this one. My favorite one at work was a National Geographic book called Birds of North America, and I got this one special. It's in a spiral bound book, and that was so in the field you can fold them over. But you won't find this book on the shelf anywhere. This book is produced by permission, of course, of Nat Geo, or it was when I bought these. Now this could have changed, but they were produced by a group of folks down in Alabama who were major players in hummingbird protection, identification, monitoring, that sort of thing. And I'm not sure how this worked, how they got to do this, but they're the only ones that I knew that ever put this out there. If you're interested, contact me on Instagram or through here, whatever, later, and I can see if you were ever to want one, I'll see if I can still get them. They cost a few dollars more than they were at their original price. But that's because they were paying to have them bound like this. But it's a great way to do it if you're out in the field because you can really fold the books over and not tear the pages out. And most people know if you fold paperback books, which a lot of these are, you quickly start to rip the pages out. Now, the gold standard for birding used to be this. The Peterson, and I think still is for a lot of people. It's my favorite probably of all, but it's Peterson's guide. Roger Troy Peterson was famous for his drawings of birds, and he started this, and he got this going. And his books are drawings, they're colored in by hand to get the colors all exactly right. They mark all the special indicators, the things you would look at to distinguish one species from another. Like all these different kinds of jays, and some of them are obvious, and you can tell them apart real quick, but some of them take forever. I recently acquired this version, and I don't think these are available anymore. But this is a hardback copy of the original Peterson's Bird Guide, and I found this one in an antique auction. And the reason I wanted it, honestly, was because the only other one I've ever seen, I'm sure lots of people have them, but the only other one I had ever seen belonged to Mark Uncas. And he used to show it to me, and I think it probably belonged to his dad. I think. I'm not sure where he got it. But back when I first met him and we first started using it, this is actually the second edition. So there was one before this, but that's still pretty good. This was printed in, where's the sheet? This was printed in 47. The original one was 1934, or the first edition. But like I said, this started out kind of being. Anyway, I wanted this one because it's a hardback. I don't think you can get a hardback version of this at all anymore. And this one's been, this I believe was the last time they did a hardback. I'd have to verify that, but that's not important right now. I wanted one because I never found a hardback, so I bought one at auction not long ago, and got it for a little bit of nothing. Most people didn't care to have it, but I wanted it because it was an old original. And you can get specialized books now too. Peterson put out this one, and I hope you can still get ones like this, but this one's just about hawks and accipiters, falcons, and that sort of bird. It doesn't cover, I don't think it's got large birds of prey like eagles, goldens, balls, but I have to look again to make sure. Well, it might. It's got vultures and things in it too, which are considered raptors. They're in the same class, at least as far as protection is concerned, but they are considered raptors. It's a very rare thing for them to take live food, or catch food. But this one's, got lots of really good pictures of, birds in flight, all the markings. We looked out our back window the other day. I think Brenda looked first, and we had what's known as I was trying to find a picture of an example of one in here. A red-shouldered hawk, which is a medium to large size hawk. Yeah, here's some. This guy right here. And it was sitting out here on a tree, and it was one of those rainy, crappy days when, it was just really cold and bitter outside, and it was sitting there all fluffed up. It looked huge. It's one of those trickery things that Gary Larson used to say in The Far Side. And if you really get into it, another thing you might want to consider, and this one is not filled out. I got this one from somebody, or maybe I bought it, and then I started keeping notes in a notebook. I'm thinking I would like to go back and redo this, but this is the Nat Geo Bird Journal, and what it does is it gives you an opportunity. And serious birders keep up with all this kind of stuff. The day they see a species, where they see it first, the weather conditions, and that's what a book like this will allow you to do. In this book, they show you the bird, and then over here you can write notes about the bird the day you see it. And if you're serious, and I have a Sibley's guide that kind of does the same thing. Well, it's not for writing in, and it's hardback, but it gives you a lot of discussion about breeding habits, where they nest, how they nest, places you can look for nests if you're combing the woods. I worked on a small project a time or two in the mountains here for cerulean warblers, which is a cerulean bluebird warbler species. It's cerulean blue, literally, and that's only in certain areas above a certain elevation in the mountains, and they're becoming less and less. There's becoming less and less of them. Or I'm not saying that right, but you know what I mean. So we were studying populations down here in the top at the mountaintops and above like 3,000 feet or something. And a lot of times what we would find, and we were looking for nest sites, and they make their nest in particular out of spider webs. They collect spider webs as they fly through the trees in the woods and weave them into a nest. So once you find the nest, it's kind of obvious that it's cerulean because it looks white. And you get those kind of notes from one of those guides, like that second guide, the one that is more information in writing. But serious birders do that kind of thing. And then, of course, the next thing you really need is a pair of binoculars of some sort. Some birders use spotting scopes too. A lot of times they'll find birds with binoculars, and then they'll get a spotting scope out that's more powerful and on a tripod, and sometimes they'll use that to get closer looks at birds if they're birds that are sitting that still. Small birds, some people jokingly call them little brown birds, but your basic songbirds and warblers and that sort of stuff that flit around, they move around about too fast for that. So you pretty much got to use binoculars or something you can move real quick. But I see a lot of people using spotting scopes when they're watching ducks on the water, or things like geese or sandhill cranes, birds that are feeding on the land and they're moving slowly around. That you can actually get them in a scope and keep them there. And you can, with powerful scopes on a tripod, you can get really close up and get a lot of those details about the birds. And that's a lot. It's fun if you're into that sort of thing. And something else to consider, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not as good at this. I've never practiced enough. I can do some, but something like this was put out by Stokes, and it's a field guide to bird songs. And honestly, most serious birders, truly serious birders, can identify more birds by ear than they can by sight, or they can find them quicker by ear than sight because they know the songs. And every bird out there, every bird species, has a unique song or a series of songs that they sing, whistle. And now, while I'm sure different birds probably have slightly different tones, every bird of a certain species, like every red bird, every blue jay, not blue jay, it's not a good example. Every titmouse or black-capped chickadee that comes, every black-capped chickadee in the world sings the same songs, and that's how they find each other. And I guess it's kind of like whales talking in a way, but so a lot of birders learn those songs, and a lot of times there's just they kind of they break it down, and there's songs they sing just when they're loafing, and there's songs they sing when they're trying to hook up with a mate, and there's songs they sing to attract females. For example, males do a lot of the singing that you hear. The females do too, but the males sing more because, again, they're trying to attract the females. So a set of CDs or sounds, something to learn the sounds with, is also good to have. And that goes for a lot of species. People that do work with frogs, they learn all the frog calls in a certain area and they can listen for them. I'm not as good at that because I can't hear very well. Some tones don't come in. So I can't hear birds quite as well as other people can, but that's a little bit of a detriment. And then you can carry that on, and like Shelley has gotten really into bird photography. I don't know if she started out just as a casual bird watcher or just a bird lover and then went straight into photography. But and then once you go down that rabbit hole, there's lenses and cameras and just all kinds of things. It's a never ending pursuit. it's like any other hobby that you get serious about. You can spend a lot of money on it. Stop, Simon. Or you can just kind of take it, continue to be casual about it. But there's a lot of great resources out there if you're interested. There's usually state ornithological societies and groups that do things like winter bird counts. There's a Christmas bird count that they do nationwide every year within certain days around Christmas, and they do that to determine populations of different species around the country at different times of the year. I know some friends that are really heavily into that. Brenda has a friend in Atlanta that's really into birding now, and she takes her school children out to learn bird calls and birds sights. She uses that in her teaching curriculum a lot, and which I think's really cool. But she does a lot of bird watching, and bird watchers are funny animal people, and they're almost fun to watch themselves, because some of them they really get into it. Some, so to the point where I've known of and seen people, male or female, actually come into a room and do a call or do a dance that, say, a sandhill crane might do when it greets other members of the flock. So they can get a little weird. Hey there, Mike, how you doing this morning? I'm going to again assume it's you, and it could be Val, but I don't think so. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Good to see you. And I'm just winding up my talk about birds and birding. And they travel. If somebody sees a very rare bird somewhere, it is not uncommon for bird watchers to flock, again, pardon the pun, to those areas to get a chance to see that for their life list. The longer someone birds or does bird watching and keeps a life list, which is all the birds you've ever seen in your entire life, and it doesn't count if you see them on TV or something, you have to see them. They will go to great lengths to fill out a life list to complete birds that they've never seen, to add birds they've never seen to their list. It's kind of amazing the lengths that some people will go to see a rare bird. I've had the opportunity to name one or to identify one species. That's probably not a good word. I'm not naming or identifying it in science. I just saw it and reported. That's a better word. A few years ago, I spotted a pair of western grebes on one of our lakes here. So I took some photos, did some drawings, and reported it to what was called, I think it's still out there, Tennessee Birds, and it's a list online of a group of people put together. The Ornithological Society of Tennessee maintains it, I believe, and people get on there and talk about their birding. And if a new bird shows up, let's say a calliope hummingbird shows up in East Tennessee, which are very rare here, it gets reported and they go see it. People go see it. We get strayed occasionally. We only have one common hummingbird back east. Out west, they've got several. But back east, we only have one. That's a ruby-throated. But every once in a while, something really rare will pass through here, get blown off course in migration, or get lost somehow, or hang out with a different group or something, and it ends up here. And it seems like it's usually in the wintertime. And if they get stuck up here in the winter and it starts getting cold, they will start going to a feeder to live, basically, to survive. Hummingbirds have to eat almost constantly to survive because of their rapid metabolism. So if you ever find that to be a case and you're feeding hummingbirds in the winter and they're coming to it in the winter, try to keep feeding them, because they will become to rely on that to survive the cold weather. So anyway, one last book of note, and I don't remember where I found this or we found this. I think or it might have been a gift. But it looks like I got this back in 1990. But this one is called Another Field Guide to Little Known and Seldom Seen Birds. But these are kind of different birds. These are sort of kind of making fun or making light of. For example, here we have what they're calling the nearsighted bat owl. So it's hanging upside down on a perch. Or the yellow-bellied prairie chicken, which is not a real thing. Here's one they're calling the fixed-wing hawk. So basically, they're saying it can't fold up its wings. Or retract them, at least. And it shows the egg. I don't know if you can see this or not. But down here in this corner, it shows the egg. And if you look real close, you can see the wings are already in the shell. Since they're fixed, they're already there in the chick. So it's just a funny book. And here's a high diving heron. Anyway, it's just it was fun and funny, and I thought it was cute, interesting, and just another way to look at bird watchers and birding. There's a cross a cross-cut sawbill play on the woodpecker. You probably can't see the detail, but his bill or his beak has saw teeth on it, so he's sawing through the wood as opposed to pecking on it. I saw one here that looked kind of funny. Well, they all look kind of funny, to be honest. Oh yeah, here it is. They're calling this a crimson puffer. And if you look down the bottom, you can see how it puffs up when distressed. Again, no such thing, but kind of fun to think about. Anybody have any questions, or if I put everybody to sleep? I know everybody's not into birds. I know that that's not a topic that everybody gets interested in. It's not the easiest pursuit. I mean, you can do it, and you can do it pretty cheaply. I suggest if you do get into it, I'm not going to tell anybody to buy the most expensive pair of binoculars out there because that can go into thousands of dollars. But buy the best you can afford, and that helps. But any pair of binoculars is better than none. I'm currently have on these called Zenrays, and I had never heard of them before. And our friend in Atlanta, that's the bird watcher, had their local club had sort of discovered them, and they were actually developed by a group of birders in the United States who were trying to get quality binoculars, higher quality binoculars, but not that weren't as expensive as some of the other high quality ones. And they've kind of managed to do that. I haven't even looked to see if they're still around, but I found them to be really good quality binos, and yet they're not quite as expensive as some of the European designs that are very expensive. Good morning, Cherie, or officially good afternoon. It's 12:03. Are you at lunch or on a break? Or maybe you're already off for the day. Thank you, Carol, for that. Hopefully you got to see some of the birds. Teddy, do you want to get on camera before I go by? You feel like waking up? Let me see if I can get Teddy up. He needs to make at least one experience. Or one, not experience. He needs to make at least one appearance. Now, look, turn around here and say hi to Carol. She's asking about you. I don't know if you can see his face or not. It's It's on his left cheek. He's probably not going to show it. And he's not going to stay here very long. If you only knew how hard he was pulling. Cherie says, hey, Teddy. I'm sure when Carol sees you, she'll say, hey, Teddy. You going to let go? You're going to go back to sleep. He's relaxing a little bit. Nope, back to his chair. So anyway, did you mean Teddy or is Yachty in here, Carol? Let's see, let me back up here a minute. I know that Mike said something. We have a Dove family. Oops. Yeah. Stephen Mindy. Well, that's good. I guess down there they probably just don't leave. I mean, they probably can stay in the same nest and have several broods a year. I don't know. I've never really looked that up to see how many times, because a lot of birds will nest more than once a year. Not all birds, but a lot of small birds will nest a couple times, can nest a couple of times a year. I've seen nests where they've done that. Now, bigger birds like owls and hawks and things, they don't tend to double nest, but some do. Okay, Cherie. Well, thanks for coming in. Nonetheless, I'm glad you got a few minutes to say hi. Okay, it was Teddy. Okay. Carol said hi. She said hi to you, even though you were being ugly. We've had, John, we had some, for several years, we had a pair of not red-tail hawks. We had a pair of red-shouldered hawks that lived in this community, and I think they're still around. Last year, then they always nested in a patch of trees right across the street from us. And a couple years ago, they actually out on a pine, on the top of a pine, right across the street, at the edge of the driveway of the new neighbors. And they were just right there by the driveway. And they didn't come back and use that nest last year. So I don't know. I'm hoping they'll be back out close. I'm not sure why, unless there was just too much traffic there. I think they're fairly used to people being around. Sometimes a bird like hawk, or for example, I've seen hawks that would abandon a nest if too many people around. That used to be a real problem with bald eagles when they were trying to reintroduce them in parts of the country. And so they would, if you had one, people talked horror stories about not being able to use areas of the land and stuff because of something like this, but they would usually have an area several hundred feet around the nest where you weren't supposed to go or do certain activities while they were nesting, because they would leave the nest and not come back, and the eggs would die, or the chicklets, the nestlings, would die. Well, Cherie, you need a book that shows you. Would be my best explanation, because there's always markings on them, either in the chest area. There's the way the feathers are colored. The tail is often the indicator. A red-tailed hawk, if you see it from below, has literally a red tail, a rufous colored tail, and you can always see it. A broad-winged hawk, which is similar to a red tail, is the only hawk we have that size that has a white stripe on its tail. It's things like that that can tell them apart. Red-shouldered or red tail. Well, red-shouldered has more of a red breast and down lower. Red-shouldered or red-tailed has a red tail. When I say red, I don't mean bright red like a woodpecker's head or something. I mean more of a rufous reddish brown. And then it has what people call a bib. It has just an area up high that is usually checkered and with rufous feathers also, or brown. And that's how the best way to tell them apart. And red-shouldered are probably a little more common than red-tailed are probably a little more common than red-shouldered, but down your way, I'm sure you have both. We have both here. Okay, Cherie, that's good. But that's how I tell them apart. The red-shouldered is not quite as big as a red-tail, but from a distance, you might not, see that difference. They're never right up beside each other. No, it's not a stupid question at all. It's a good question because that's the problem most people have is identifying, especially from a distance. But like I said, if you can see that tail, and sometimes when the sun, if you get one in flight and can look from beneath and it gets over the sun or the sun hits it, I mean, it's sort of translucent, but you can really see the color then. So if it's got that, it's not a red shouldered. And well, I said the broadwing had the only striped tail. That's not true, but it's the way it's striped. Don't have to look that up to get that exactly right. I don't see many around here. Mostly around here we have Cooper's hawks, which are small. They're more of they're an accipiter, or broadwing hawks, Buteo, which is red shouldered and red tails are. And one of the differences is the little guys hunt in the woods a lot. And like Cooper's hawks are pretty much, they eat other birds, whereas red tails and red shouldered are more inclined to hunt edges or fields. Red shouldered, especially, or red tails, especially, they catch rabbits and squirrels and small mammals out in the field, rats, mice, that sort of thing. Oh, well, cool, Cherie. Well, you've probably done more officially than I have in a way. I've never belonged to the society and gone to a lot of meetings. I just worked around a lot of birders and kind of picked it up on my own. And like I said, I don't consider myself a great birder. I get by. But I have friends and new guys at work that were what I consider experts. And the more you do it, the more you pick it up. So when I'm actually doing it a lot actively, it I was better. Let's put it that way. Oh, I used to always carry mine, Carol, especially when I was working on either on the boat or in the car. I would carry a pair of binoculars all the time just in case. Didn't always need them for the job, but I never knew what I might see out there, so I tried to keep them handy. Thank you. Oh, wait a minute. I got another infiltrator here. Did I get rid of him? No. Or is that another one? Oh, I did get him. Okay. Where's Tina and her bat when I need her? Tina's going to have to show her bat someday. I don't know if she's ever shown anybody that. I got her a bat one time. Well, that can be hard on Cherie. In Florida, that is probably a valid concern, but I'm not sure. I mean, most of them can probably take it, but that is an issue down there. I mean, they do get hot. Thank you, Tina. There, Tina is wielding her bat. And a mighty bat wielder she is. Okay. Yeah, I've beaten the troll back a little bit there. Thank you. Oh, you're in South Carolina. That I know. Sorry, but it gets really hot. I don't know why I said Florida, Cherie. I just got my geography mixed up there for a minute because I've been talking about Florida all morning, and bird watching in Florida just around Disney World. And oh, you have shown it, okay. And that's why I said that, Cherie. I've been talking about birding in Florida, and you talking about binoculars, and I just ran the two together there. Sorry, wasn't on purpose. Oh, that's right. You are from Florida. See, yeah, maybe that's what threw me off. Any excuse, it's me. Bears can't be held responsible for everything they say. But anyway, yes, it is. I know that. It gets pretty darn hot up here too. But when you get down your way and then further south and in Florida, man, that sun is intense down there. It just it and you add that humidity, which we have too. The only thing about Florida is, most of the time it's so flat and everything down there. The wind off the ocean blows almost constantly, so that helps. But up here, it can get that stifling and no breeze. Okay, Cherie, I'm about ready to sign off. So I hope you have a great day. You can get off work soon and get home and have a great weekend. No, it's not real hot right now. So I'm about to lose my voice, guys. So I think I am going to sign off, and I might try to Dr. Mr. Teddy's lip while I'm up. But thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate you listening to my talk about birds. I will probably expand on this a bit at some point when Mark's able to come in, because Mark knows so much more. I mean, he is such a good birder, and birds are something he's really studied intensely most of his life. And in fact, that was his job for a while, was a bird specialist out in Arizona. Well, good for James. That was very sweet of him. I've had to do that before too. Yeah, Tina, I do hope Nina ate. We've got a puny cat right now ourselves. Simon's not feeling real great. I had to put another bed down in my office, study, studio area, whatever here, because Teddy I've got a little space heater kind of radiator thing, and Teddy was been laying. That's where he likes to lay if he's not on me or in his chair. And Simon came down and decided he would lay in it. So there was some between the two of them. There was some disagreement about that. So I brought a second bed down, and one time I had them too close together, so Simon just laid on both of them. Teddy couldn't get either one, so now I've got them separated. Well, that's good, Tina. Hopefully, that's a good sign. So, okay, guys, I'm going to sign off for the day. I appreciate again. I was starting to do this a minute ago. Thanks everybody for being here. If you have any questions about getting into bird watching or birds or something that I actually can answer, I will, or I will ask somebody who knows. Oh, my cats love hot heating pads or electric blankets or heating pads, Cherie. I know what you mean. I got one that sleeps on a heating pad every night because he's cold. So anyway, if you have a question, send me an IG. Most of you know how to get hold of me on Instagram. I do have other email, and I can always send you that if we, through IG or something. Not that there's anybody on here there's not. I don't think I have anybody spying on me here that would get my email or steal it or anything. But yeah, I know, Tina. That's hard, and that's kind of where we're at with the cat too. We may we've talked about it. We don't want to talk about it. He's not that old. But if this problem persists, we may have to. I don't want him miserable, and I don't want him unhappy. And it's hard when he's sick. I mean, you feel bad for him. I do anyway. I love my animals, be they dogs or be they cats, and I don't want to see them suffer. So anyway, thanks everyone. I really appreciate you. Love you all for being here. Thank you very much. And if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, I'll see y'all again next Saturday morning. Oh no, wait a minute. I may not be here. I'll try to let you know. I have a medical procedure next Friday. And depending on how that leaves me feeling, I may or may not be here. If I'm in pain, if it's causing me some discomfort, I may not make it, but I'll try to be here. And I've never had this done before, so I'm not really looking forward to it. Hopefully there's no serious problem, so we'll see. So see you guys around in the chat rooms or chats and the live streams and whatnot. And everybody have a great rest of the weekend and a great upcoming week. And see you all next time. Bye-bye.